Zambia Blog Talk Radio.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Blog Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Blog Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Welcome, everybody. It is Saturday, July the 30th, and we do appreciate you joining us today. We have a great discussion with us as we speak to one of our leaders from the political parties of our nation. Tag somebody, tell them Zambia Blog Talk Radio is live. We are on Facebook, Zambia Blog Talk Radio, and our YouTube channel is ZBTR TV. If you want to be receiving notifications whenever we go live, please like our YouTube link and then click on notifications that it will tell you so. Democracy is a beautiful thing. The only challenge with it is that people do not appreciate or fail to recognize that the ability to have a multiplicity of parties is part of the democratic process. And that's what we love doing about this. That's why we bring different political leaders so that we speak to them. They share with us their position and perspective of the state of things in the nation of Zambia. Let me introduce my co-host, Mr. Kasulova here in Lusaka. Hi, Mr. K. How are you today? Kasulova, can you hear me? Mr. K. Okay, his sound is still going to work on his sound. This afternoon, morning, evening, from whichever part of the world that you are watching or listening to us, we are greatly honored to have one of our political leaders join us. And this is no other than, this is no other than Dr. Cosmas Musumali. He is the General Secretary and first Vice President, right? of the
Correct.
Socialist Party of Zambia. And he's joining us today from Lusaka, Zambia. Dr. Musumali, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, it's a privilege to participate in this talk show.
How is the weather in Lusaka today?
The weather has been changing, but as of this time, it's sunny, it's a little bit hot, and I guess the temperatures will fall down very soon.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, let's get into the discussion. Let's see if my colleague here is, Kasulova, are you all right? Can you hear me now? Okay. He seems to be having sound problems. Dr. Musumali, we are almost a year since the general elections of 2021, which were just something to watch and to participate, especially for those of us from this part of the world. And I'm sure, like any organization that has gone through something, the party did do a post-mortem, I believe. So, what were the findings, or what sort of things did you come up with, or how did you view the Socialist Party's performance in the last presidential and general elections?
Thank you very much again. The elections look like it's a long time back, but yet it's hardly a year.
Yes.
Rather, we are almost clocking a year now, or we have clocked a year actually. Yes, so it is still very important to take stock of what transpired.
Yes.
And your question is justified. As a political party, what was our take? So we did review our performance in the past elections. And just as a context, This was our first time to participate in the elections. We were given the mandate by our Congress that we had held in 2018 that we should fully, the word is fully, participate in these elections. So that was one task. The second task we were given was that we should ensure there's gender parity as we get into the elections. So these were the two cardinal tasks that our National Congress had given us. Okay. So we went into the elections bearing those two critical issues into place. So we made an attempt to ensure that we presented parliamentarian and ward level candidates in the whole of our country, meaning 156 and all the mayoral seats, we wanted to cover them, or at least that was the intention. And also for all the wards, we did participate. Did we achieve the goal? No, we missed the target by a few numbers at all levels. Why? You remember that at one time there was a reinterpretation of the grade 12 certificate.
Yes.
Yes, that qualification. And because of that, some of our potential candidates could not make the grade. And given the time, especially in the far-flung rural areas, it's not an easy task. But we managed actually to participate in 96% of all the constituencies and the wards in Zambia. And if I'm not mistaken, apart from the UPND, the PF, we were one of the top parties in terms of participation. The second task that we were given was about gender participation, gender parity. And we missed it also because of the grade 12 certificate issues, but we attained 48%.
Okay.
And Nathan, 48% has never been achieved in terms of gender participation or female participation in the whole history of Zambia since 1964. So the Socialist Party made history. We made history with 48% women participation.
Wow.
The other task at hand that we had was to ensure that we actually presented people that were leaders in communities. What does this mean? It means you go to an area with a big local market, you choose your leaders from that local market. We chose leaders from the bus stops. So we had candidates that were taxi drivers, minibus drivers, marketeers, charcoal sellers, and so forth. Because we believe that leadership has nothing to do with the size of your pocket, with how wealthy you are. Leadership is your commitment to the people of Zambia, and leaders are everywhere. And we wanted to send this signal, to send an example that democracy can work differently. And again, it was the first time this was happening in the history of Zambia. No political party has ever tried to do that. We also are aware that adverts matter. And we did spend quite a lot in terms of having billboards throughout the country. In a number of areas, actually, we had more billboards than the UPND. The PF generally had more billboards than us. We did spend a lot of time participating on radio programs, on TV, and so forth. So our participation was full. And that was the requirement that we were given by our National Congress. It was about full participation, gender equity, and also coming up with organic leaders of the masses. And from that point of view, we met the target. We could have achieved the 50%, and we want to achieve it in 2021 in terms of gender parity. Now, how about the results? If you do all those things, then the question is always, what was the outcome? What are the results? So for all that effort that we put in, we were not happy. We got a result that we thought, well, we did a lot of work. The results would have been much better. And we only managed to scoop 5 wards. So we have 5 councillors in the whole Zambia. Yes, that's not good enough. We know it was the first time to participate in the electoral politics, but for the effort that we put in, we thought the results could have been a little bit different.
A little bit different.
And so part of our evaluation was, what is it exactly that happened? And the summary is that people wanted change. People of Zambia wanted change. And that change was mainly embodied by the youth, by the young people that were fed up with the previous government. The PF government had failed the masses of Zambia, failed in a significant way. And for the younger people, they didn't see a future with a government still led by the PF. And then out of the opposition political parties, who is it that had the muscle? Who is it that was popular? Who is it that was known by the masses of our people? At that point, it was the UPND. So these elections were by default. People wanted change, especially the young people, and they voted. They voted in their millions because that change was necessary. So for the Socialist Party, despite the efforts that we put in, would have wished a different result. But we accepted defeat. We were the first political party actually to congratulate the UPND and congratulate President HH for the success. And give it to them. They have had the stamina. When you go through elections and a series of losses, you get demoralized. But they didn't get demoralized. And the final result is what they got. That's the victory of 2021.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Dr. Musumali. What a comprehensive evaluation that you have given there. And well, I would say congratulations on the 5 words, because that's where basically leadership is mostly needed. Although we don't look at it that way, people tend to look at the member of parliament and the presidential election as but actually the words is where the greater influence is needed. In the past few months, Dr. Musumali, we've noticed or witnessed the Electoral Commission of Zambia has instituted some strategic exercises, which includes continuous voter registration, education, e-voting, and they are working on getting the diaspora to start to vote. Are they doing enough, or they still fall far short from the Socialist Party's point of view?
Interesting enough, all these developments that we supported and also suggested from long time back, long before the 2021 elections, the Socialist Party was of the opinion that continuous voter registration was not just in line with our constitution, but it made sense. The idea of trying to register voters in the last minute defranchises a good number of Zambians.
Yes. Just
like we issue cards, national registration cards at any given moment, the same should happen with the issue of voting. You get your NRC, the next thing that you should get is your voter's card. And I think as a citizen, this is something that must be encouraged, and it's a good move that this has been introduced. I know it's being phased from one district to the other, but we would expect this to be expedited as soon as possible. There is some bit of resistance in certain quarters, but I think this resistance is misinformed, because if we really want the majority of Zambians to participate, this is the way to go. The second issue that you are raising is about electronic voting. A lot of the malpractices when it comes to elections have got to do with the processes that are followed. And this manual system, especially, render themselves a lot to manipulation. So election rigging gets minimized when you go electronic. And countries that have gone that way have experienced fewer problems. And we can learn quite a lot from those countries. Yes. It also takes away a lot of these processes of suing, people not being happy with the outcomes, and finger pointing against the Electoral Commission, against the sitting government in terms of rigging. So electronic voting or e-voting is what must be followed. It's already being followed by many other countries, and Zambia should take that route. So the Socialist Party will continue to support this particular process, and it should be expedited. It's not something that should be done in the last minute. And the issue of voting in the diaspora, as a Zambian, you're entitled to all the rights of a Zambian, regardless of where you are. The constitution does not say that you lose your democratic rights simply because you are domiciled somewhere else outside the country. So for any state, for any government, you must put in place mechanisms to ensure that your citizens, whether they're in prison, whether they're outside the country, they're able to vote. That's what democracy means. It doesn't come cheap. Democracy comes at a cost, and that cost involves that all Zambians, wherever they are, they must be accorded a chance to vote. So the Socialist Party is fully behind this process.
Totally. To your point of democracy not coming cheap and it comes at a cost, elections, of course, and campaigns for that matter can be a very costly venture. And one of the things that we, as a talk show, when we're following the elections, Dr. Musumali, that we kept hearing was that, like you said yourself, that the PF had the most billboards or advertising. They spent so much money, and most of the billboards or campaign material you could see was Socialist Party material. That information was reaching us. Are you, as a party, where do you stand on the position of government funding political parties?
So there are different levels.
Mm-hmm.
One level is make the process of participation less costly.
Okay. How?
Today we have a situation where if you want to stand to be a councillor, before you are put there, you have to pay. So part of the requirement is that you pay an amount of money. And this keeps on changing in each election cycle, and it's becoming more and more expensive. Initially, this was in the ranges of 1,000. Today, they have gone up, and I hope it doesn't go up in 2026. You want to be an MP, it used to be in the range of 5,000. It went up, I don't know, is it 10,000 kwacha, and so forth. So what does this mean? This means only those people that are able to come up with these amounts can stand and represent their constituencies. Only those people that are able to fund these very costly elections, buy regalia, and so forth, provide transport, are able to stand. So if democracy is about having money, then we are wasting our time, because this is supposed to be a rule of the people. And the people, the majority of our people, don't have the money. So you have a system where the rich people are the ones that get into politics. So the Zambian type of democracy is very selective, it's very partial. If you are poor, your chances of standing are zero. And when you talk to young people that are actually eloquent, that work with the communities, why can't you stand and represent your people? The answer is always, I don't have the money. So what did the Socialist Party do? The Socialist Party funded all its candidates. The nomination fees and most of the campaign issues, the material, the regalia was funded by the party. It meant the party had to mobilize resources from the members, from supporters, and then get these resources to run the election. And it's not just running the election from the presidential point of view, but also ensuring the candidates are paid for. The candidates get the bicycles. The candidates get a little bit of money to run these campaigns. It was a very, very costly exercise. So coming to the issue of government support, I guess the best support is just to scrap the fees. Start with the fees, do away with the fees, because these are a burden. Fees.
You mean
the nomination fees? Yes, the nomination fees are a hindrance to democratic participation. Yes, there is a cost to ECZ, but I think this cost should be socialized. It's a cost that should be part of the running of the elections. But this is a cost that should not be put as a burden to the people that want to stand. Not every good leader has got the means. And it's selective, it's partial, and I think it's retrogressive. We have said it before, the whole idea of having nomination fees that go up each election cycle doesn't augur well for our democracy. So that's one issue. Second issue is we can also learn from other countries. In certain countries or certain democracies, once you're a registered political party, and once you are able to front candidates to a certain percentage, let's say 10% of the constituencies, there is a small fee or a small amount that comes from government. There are also other countries that work on you winning a number of elections. You get your people as councillors, you get a number of MPs, then you automatically qualify for proportional government funding. Okay. And the easier way other countries are going about it is they look at the number of your votes, the number that you have, the number of votes that you have come up with. So that determines how much funding you are going to get. The better votes, the more votes you get, the more the funding is allocated to you. That's another way of looking at it. I think we have to debate it. Let's have dialogue over the issue of party funding. Parties are a useful instrument of our democracy.
Yes, sir.
And we shouldn't put a huge cost on participation in democracy.
I like that point you are raising to say completely eliminate the registration fees. Okay, those that are watching us, our viewers, let's hear your comment on Dr. Musumali's comment and the Socialist Party's position on scrapping nomination fees if you was filing for elections as a candidate. Let me bring in my co-host here. Kasulova, is your technical issues over now?
We're good now, Uncle Nathan.
Okay, go ahead. Welcome to the show. And everybody watching, thank you for joining us. Our guest is General Secretary and first Vice President of the Socialist Party of Zambia, Dr. Cosmas Musumali. We are discussing the way forward and Socialist Party. Go ahead, Kasulova.
Great points raised, Dr. Musumali. It's good to have you once again. I'd like to take you back on the issue of nomination fees. So who exactly are you talking about when you mention the scrapping of nomination fees? Oh, yeah, nomination fees. What categories are we looking at?
So we have 4 categories, especially in the general elections. You have elections at ward level. These are your councillor candidates. You have elections at district level. These are your council chairpersons or your mayors. You have elections, MPs. You have elections at presidential level. Now, there are quite some strict requirements, qualifications in all those levels or at all those levels. And I think those are sufficient. Let's look at, is this person eligible? Is this person able to harness so many supporters? But when you add a cost element, you are getting in an area that has nothing to do with the democracy. It has to do with money. And it's at that point now where the relevance of money really is not adding to the substance of participation. Because you can have the supporters. You can be somebody who is popular in your area. And you have the required paper qualifications and so forth. But you will not necessarily have the money. And I think it's also a question of what symbol are you sending there? What is it that you want to achieve with attaching those nomination fees? And this is where I think we have gotten it wrong. It's a question of principle, but it's also an economic issue. We have had good candidates that never participated simply because those amounts that were being put across, especially at presidential level, were way too high for them to participate. There's an issue of qualification that as a Socialist Party, we have also argued against, and this is the paper qualifications. You see, good leaders are not necessarily always people with high levels of education. You can have your PhD, but you are the worst person in terms of how you relate to other human beings. Leadership is about you providing a service to your country. Yes, education helps you to do certain things differently, but that can't be the criteria for selecting leaders. Had we done that in 1964, in 1962, 3/4 of those leaders that stood there would not have made it. Kaunda would never have been president of this country. Mr. Grezu would not have made it. Ruben Kamanga would not have made it. A lot of those founding fathers all over Africa would not have made it because they didn't have those stipulations. They didn't have those academic qualifications. Even today, some of our best leaders on the African continent are not necessarily people who hold degrees, who hold grade 12 certificates, but they are doing a very, very good job. And who tells you that if you haven't completed school, then the whole of your life, you are not upgrading yourself. Upgrading is not always about a school certificate. I've come across people in terms of their understanding, in terms of how they read and how they articulate issues. They are far ahead of a graduate, yet they have never been to university. And this is something that we should look at as Zambians. We are tying ourselves, we are taking away a lot of potential leaders. In our churches, we allow people to go in to preach to us. A number of them don't have those grade 12 certificates. In a lot of areas of our life, we have got leaders, church leaders, and so forth. When you are running a country, it's not always about you having the paper qualification and knowing everything, because you have a whole system, you have a whole bureaucracy that helps you. So you surround yourself with a bureaucracy that has got the people with the skills. But as a leader, you need something. You need to learn how to build a team. You need to know what is it that the people of my country need. And honestly, that's not always about education. There's more to it than that.
Okay. Well said. I asked that question because quite all right, and the way that you have put it is true. But then also, information that comes in is that putting in an amount is also to just limit the number of people, in as much as democracy is open. But again, we cannot have an entire nation from all people coming in from all angles to say they all want to stand. So isn't it also a control measure? Maybe not scrapping off completely, but then putting an amount that's quite favorable. Then also talking about quite all right. There are individuals that want to stand, but yet they do not have the money. So then what measures are going to be put in place to say these people want to pursue public office for the sake of just serving people and not wanting to now make money out of politics? Because there's also been a debate to say other people who want to come into government, they do not have money, they want to come into government to make money. So then how does government get to strike, or rather the nation strike a balance on these issues?
So again, there's no money in politics. If you get into politics and hope you're going to make money, then you are a thief. Unless you go there to plunder the resources of the people, that's the only way you can do it. But you join politics, whatever little bit of money you have, you're going to spend it, believe you me. Because in politics, you assume huge responsibilities towards your constituents, towards the people that you work with, towards your party. And whatever money you had in your pocket, it's going to go away. It's going to be drained out. So if you are using the issue of fees because people are going to make money, it's a wrong assumption. The issue is this, again, we have put conditions, the constitution, the electoral laws have put conditions there that say you need supporters. You have to bring up 100 supporters with you. You have to bring up this number of supporters. That's a limitation already. If you are not popular, you are not with the people, no one is going to come with you there. You fail to find that number of supporters to accredit to them. They also need electoral officers or people that are going to be there, your monitors and so forth. So you actually have to come with a team. And that's already a restriction, because if you cannot marshal that, it becomes very difficult for you to participate. So all these, and of course, there are also the issues of if at a certain level, you have to be certified to be medical fit, to be this and that. And so it's quite restrictive the way it is. But money, when you bring in money, and the issue of money is rationalized that this is to meet certain costs, and you are contributing to the costs of those elections, that is wrong. This cost must be borne by the public. It must be socialized. It's one of those sunken costs of democracy. As soon as it's cash money that has to be brought there, then you are already segregating. You are choosing people with money, and those that cannot afford the fees are not able to do so.
Okay. All right, let's take a commercial break here, Kasuluba, and then we shall continue with on the issues of the economy.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Okay, you're watching Zambia Blog Talk Radio. We are speaking to Dr. Cosmas Musumali, the first vice president of the Socialist Party. Let's switch here to the economy. Kasuluba.
Yeah, moving on to the economy or other economic policy, Dr. Musumali. It has been argued or stated to say the UPND leans towards a capitalistic approach in that they're interacting with they're embracing the IMF, the World Bank, and Western alliances. Does this make them puppets to imperialists, in your opinion?
Any government that comes in will have to work also with the Western countries. We operate in a globalized capitalist world. And you can't build socialism in the air. There's no socialism world out there. It's a capitalist world that we live in. But when we say we want to build a socialist society in Zambia, we are aware of the global implications. And how do you do that? How do you construct your socialist society in a globalized capitalist world? And we have spent a lot of time looking at that and how that can be done and how we can make use of the wealth, the innovation that's out there in the world to create a Zambia that we can be proud of, a Zambia of our dreams of 1964. We are not yet there. But if we have a government like the one we have today, the UPND government, and we are saying they are puppets, what does that mean? It means the following. You can pursue a capitalist path and still be nationalistic. Nationalistic in the sense that your first priority is to your country, your first priority is to Zambians. Your first priority is to the Zambian businesses. Your incentives, your whole economic policy is not just about FDI. It's not about, in your first budget, you are giving away millions and millions to the mining houses in terms of royalty. It's not about your first meetings, you are going to rush and talk to the American business people, yet you have not had serious dialogue with your Zambian businessmen. You are puppets because you have a leader who has been a friend to multinationals that we know of, Anglo-American. He's a personal friend to the Oppenheimers. That's not a secret. And there's a Bret Hart Foundation. It's not a secret. And we do not deny him to have friends. Just like any one of you, any one of us has good friends, that's okay. But we want to see a distinction between your friendship and the policies that you take when you're in government. We don't want to see your friendship influencing, your friendship becoming core in terms of the policies that you are undertaking. And this is what we are seeing. This is what we are seeing. If you read what has happened over the past few months, how we have approached Anglo-American, how we have gone ahead and embraced the Bret Hart Foundation, what Greg Mills is doing, and so forth, that's where the issue of puppet comes in. We are worried as Zambians that here it's no longer the Zambian people, the Zambian advisors, the Zambian economists that are talking, but you have taken Greg Mills to be your advisor. Anglo-American has more say. And these people are even pushing you to come closer to AFRICOM. So we are not talking out of ignorance. We are talking because we have the facts. And the facts are that these same multinational capitalists, especially the white South African capital, they are now even influencing our defense policies. They're encouraging us to get AFRICOM into this country. And that's where that name puppet comes in. Anglo-American is not a stranger to us. We were ruled by them before. The British South African Company is the one that was there with the Cecil Rhodes, and the Oppenheimers bought it off. And that's what Anglo-American is. So we were a colony of Anglo-American. Our 10,000 people, the Ngonis, the Impis, were slaughtered by Anglo-American. A treaty that was fake with King Lewanika was signed because of Anglo-American. And for all these years, even when we got independence, even when the Kaunda government wanted to nationalize, if you do the stock taking today, they got more money out of Zambia than Zambia ever got money out of them. If you really want to talk about enemies of the people of Zambia, Anglo-American is an enemy of the people of Zambia from history up to today. And when our leader, the one that has been voted for by the majority of the Zambians, is seen fraternizing these people in a way that is not proportional, in a way that is not objective, then we call him a puppet. That's where that word puppet comes from. So it's not imagined. You know, capitalism, we have seen nationalistic capitalism in certain cases where you have a capitalist state, a capitalist leader, but at the same time, they are very strong in terms of defending the interests of their country. That happens also. And at that point, we can argue differently to those people. But in this case, it's not even the Zambian businessmen that are coming first. It's the foreign businessmen that are coming first. You are talking about the IMF bailout. Again, there are many ways of going about the dilemma that we find ourselves today. Is the IMF a must? No, not necessarily so. Should we have given it some bit of thought? Yes, we should have. The IMF is the lender of the last resort. The IMF is not going to bring in a $4 billion today in your economy. No, it won't, actually, in our economy, sorry. So you have to sit down, get your local economists, get your local business people and ask them serious questions. We do not all have the knowledge to everything, but as a collective, as Zambians, we can find solutions that are appropriate to Zambia, that are appropriate to Africa. This habit of running to the IMF, to the World Bank, as if that's where the solutions are, is killing us. It's killing our continent. And Zambia is following into that trap. Today, if you look at the global reserves, who is it that has got more reserves that is lending to the whole world? It's China. It's not the US. The bank that is being set up today by the BRICS will have more funding than IMF than the World Bank. I know that when you tie something with the IMF with the World Bank, then you have the Paris Club and everyone else coming in. But again, these are neo-colonial arrangements that are there. They will squeeze us and they will please international capital. For a certain time, you will see as if Zambia has got this glitter, that glitter, FDI comes in. But this is not the FDI that sustains our economy. We did it before from 1991. We are going back to where we were in 1991. Please sit down with China. Sit down with China. And this is the advice we have given our friends who are running our country today. Sit down with China. That's where the money comes from. That's where even our debt in terms of size comes from. Explain to them the situation. Yes, China. Even Americans, despite all the enmity they have with China, they still get back to China. Europe, despite everything else, they still get back to China. So please, and Xi Jinping has shown some bit of interest. He's committed to this country. The CPC is committed to Zambia for historical reasons. These are people who have come with from a long way back. Yeah, and there are several ways how this debt can be restructured, how fresh money can come into the country and roll over existing credits that are a bit more expensive. But what did we do? We ignored them from day one. We ignored them. Even when we talked of having a small meeting when the government was formed, the new government was formed, we ignored them. It was only much later, just as an afterthought. We realized a lot of our debt, actually, is held by them. That's when we are going there. And we are happy that they are the ones who are sort of chairing this process. That's not the way to go. Diplomatically, in terms of the economic diplomacy, we have blundered quite a lot. So we need time to sit down with the Zambian people, the Zambian businessmen, and we have Zambian economists also that have got something. And a lot of them have provided very, very interesting perspectives how we can deal with this debt.
Okay.
So that's where the word of puppet comes from. It's not unimagined. It's not just a word that we have created. No. That word has got meaning. It has got substance.
Okay. Very strong points and statements there on the UPND economic policies, Dr. Musumali. Very quickly, what would the nation expect should the Socialist Party form government from your economic policies? What would you do different?
Yes. So the Socialist Party, we have said it over and over. We are going to survive. This country must survive. This continent must survive. And for us to survive, let's start with education.
Okay.
We can talk about everything else, but if we mess up education, we go nowhere. And in education, we are going to put a minimum of 25% of our budget. But even that 25% in our arithmetic, it's not sufficient. So I use the word socializing. What does that mean? It means even after you have put a 25% of your national budget, you still have to go back to the masses of Zambia to make an extra contribution. So, Comrade Nathan, you have this radio blog here. We'll ask you to contribute 1 hour of your time to the education system in Zambia. There's some nice literature from the US and somewhere else that can benefit our school programs. So we want this to air in Shangombo, in Kaputa, and so forth. And that will be your contribution to the education process of Zambia. Every Zambian, wherever we are, will ask them to make a contribution. And that contribution can be in monetary terms, that contribution can be in terms of assets and so forth. But if we do it that way, we can achieve certain things. What are those things we want to achieve? First, we have to deal with illiteracy.
Okay.
You cannot create a 21st century economy if even just 5% of your people are illiterate. That should not happen. And we have started on it. We have the Fred Remember Literacy Campaign program. We have graduated over 2,000 people. In a matter of 6 months, even people that are 78 years old, 80 years old, are able to read and write in English. We have developed a concept for doing that. And our hope is that 10 years of the Socialist Party in government, we will be the first African country without illiteracy. We are going to eradicate illiteracy. And we have started working on that. Secondly, every Zambian child will be entitled to quality education up to compulsory, up to grade 12. And then for those that do well, up to tertiary level. This is an investment that's a must. It's a must, especially if it's mathematics, science-based, for us to come out with those innovations, for us to come out with a Zambia that is industrialized. You can't industrialize with the type of curriculum that we have today. So a socialized education, 25% national budget is the first step. Health, 20% of our funding. I could go on in details how we want to restructure the pharmaceutical industry and be more self-reliant in the provision of health equipment and so forth. And then food. You see, if you don't provide your food, you go nowhere. You become slaves of other countries.
That's true.
And peasant agriculture is the only way that will create the jobs that we need. Today, how much are we investing in those areas? We have put 10% in education. In health, we have put, I think, less than, is it 8%? And then in agriculture, we're putting less than 6%. That will take us nowhere. It's a joke, actually. It's a joke in terms of what we are doing. We have got big words, big slogans, but there's no proper action in terms of actually radically changing the way the situation is today. So that's what the Socialist Party will do. Peasant agriculture will have a different magnitude altogether. Why am I using the word peasant? Because that's where you get the majority of Zambians that are poor. That's where you get the biggest workforce of Zambians. Over 1.2 million households in Zambia are in agriculture, and those are the poorest. By improving the productivity of the peasant household, you are actually creating jobs in Zambia. And it's on the basis of that high productivity of peasant agriculture that you can now build your manufacturing base. And then after that, 30 years later, you can build a service industry that is linked to that industry, the processing industry, and to this well-improved peasant agriculture. Cooperatives are going to play a huge role in so doing. So that's sort of, in summary, what the Socialist Party stands for. It stands for a radically different Zambia, a Zambia that has top-notch education, top-notch health, and provides food, not just to itself, but to the whole African region.
Okay, excellent. Let's read some of the comments that our people who are watching us are saying here. Let me see this one. Okay, so what are your exact policies from Cambo, and what are your solutions and alternatives? I think you just addressed that. That's a question that we just asked there. Continue defending our sovereignty, Doc. That's from Mazuba. Maximo is fire, a Pan-Africanist per excellence, and somebody's watching from Monze here. Following from Monze, Manungu Compound, thank you for joining us. And Peter Zulu is the only one who responded and said the great job on eliminating the, what do you call it, the nomination fees. I don't know what everybody else thinks, because to me that was very important. There are other people here from across globe who are watching. There's a question here, Dr. Musumali, which, let me see if I can find it. It says, what is asking about, what is the socialist? I want to put it up there so that it doesn't look like it's me asking. This person is asking, he says, what is the Socialist Party's position on gay rights? Would you like to respond to that?
Yes,
okay,
because it's an issue that has come up in the public domain of late. And it came, I think, through something that was said by Mr. Winter Kabimba. And after Mr. Winter Kabimba had made remarks, then there were also people, Mr. Mwetwa from the UPND jumped in. And of late, we have had all sorts of people accusing us, some of them outrightly of saying we are gay. Some of them in a very insulting...
The Socialist Party is gay?
No, us as leaders of the Socialist Party. I have been accused, actually, as an individual, that he supports gay, he is gay himself, and so forth and so forth. There's something about Zambian politics that is a bit dirty, and I think we should bring it to an end. Zambian politics is gravitating towards not being factual. It's gravitating towards not discussing issues, substantive issues that will transform our lives. There are about 3 insults or 3 accusations that are thrown at everyone who goes into politics. When people have nothing else to say about you and they cannot contribute to a discussion, they will tell you you're a tribalist. They will tell you you're a Satanist. And they will tell you you are gay or you are promoting homosexualism. So these 3 have become standard in terms of they're supposed to be the killer punches in the political discourse. So you find these are issues, accusations that were made towards Michael Sata. These were accusations that were made even towards the UPND, towards HH. Even more recently, they were being thrown this side. And how does one respond to that? If you asked me these questions a year ago, or even 6 months ago, I would have said ignore it. If somebody insults you, you're in the political arena, just reckon with any type of human beings, any type of characters, just ignore it, forget about it. Develop that thick skin. And if someone says you're a tribalist, that's like a mark they are putting on you. No matter what you say, no matter what you say, just ignore it. And once you ignore it, it won't stick. You are a Satanist, ignore it. Because those have become like the mud that you throw on somebody. Even when there's nothing, completely nothing to eat. Why do they bring in those issues? They bring in those issues because the Zambian masses are sensitive to them.
Yeah.
Zambia is a highly religious country. And when you call somebody a Satanist, then people wake up. Who is this Satanist? You talk about witchcraft in Zambia, people become very attentive. You talk about gay in Zambia, people become very attentive. And when there's no substance, we have never discussed issues of being gay in our political lives. It's something that is foreign to us. It's something that we have never dealt with before. So when suddenly you are told this is what you are, or this is what you're advocating, then you ask yourself, oh, where is this coming from? And those of you that have been following the discussion, the previous discussion in Zambia, there's supposed to have been this court case with the Winter Kavimba. And we were appalled by the judgment that came. And I'll try to explain it very shortly. So if we translate that judgment, it's this way, that Zambia has got friendly relations with South Africa. South African constitution allows LGBT activities. So Zambia itself is promoting LGBT policies because it has got friendly relations with South Africa. It's something on those lines. So we were accused that we did send our people to school, and that school is owned by an organization in Brazil, and that those people, the owners of that school, see nothing wrong in LGBT policies, LGBT rights. Just like the country where you are today, they see nothing wrong with that. But you are in that country. And believe you me, soon you'll be accused of living in an LGBT country, and you'll be accused of promoting LGBT policies. So that's the dilemma that we find ourselves in. And I think, let me not use a bad word, it's rubbish. And we should, in terms of political discourse, desist from these issues. Because if you want your political career to end in Zambia, go there and preach Satanism. I don't think there's anyone really who, in their right senses, who preach Satanism. Go there and preach issues of tribalism, that I'm a tribalist and all that. You will go nowhere in Zambia. And go there and preach promoting LGBT rights. In Zambia, you go nowhere.
Yeah.
It's alien to the Zambian people. So using that, I think, is purposeful, it's malicious.
That's true. Thank you for that response. Thank you for the questions, everybody, and the comments. Let's switch gears here, Dr. Musumali, to a
Sorry, Uncle Nathan.
Yeah.
So sorry. I think before we switch gears, there's another comment that I feel is important that we read.
Okay, which one?
Yeah. So it's again from Mr. Campbell. This one because Dr.
Can you bring
Musumali,
it up on the screen?
Yes. Since he talked about the IMF and all that. So the question is, what is your alternative to the IMF?
So, as I said again, the alternative is you, Zambians. You are the alternative to the IMF. When does the IMF comes in? The IMF comes in when you have failed yourself. You have messed up. You have made the wrong policies. And we have governments that are making wrong policies all the time. The PF government, we advised them. Please, if you get back to what we have documented as a socialist party, where the mistakes were, each and every budget over about 6 years now, we always had a stand, and we always warned against the increasing debt levels. And we always said we can manage the little bit of resources we have better. We also warned against being too cozy to multinational organizations. You give away the mineral royalties, and those would have given you $2.6 billion with the copper prices having gone up. But when you surrender them immediately and you are looking for a 1.4 billion, it doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make economic sense. And I'm saying you, the Zambians, because the figures are there, the arithmetic is right up in your face that says you could actually have this money. You don't need the IMF if you do your arithmetic properly. You have a rich country. You have a country that could give you the resources, but you are surrendering those resources away. You're surrendering them. And then at the end, you get into debt and then go back to the IMF. And the IMF will come up with policies that don't really benefit the Zambian businesses, the Zambian economy. But these are policies that are going to benefit multinationals and foreign interests. The IMF is not an alternative. It's the Zambians that's an alternative. I mentioned another country here. I could mention maybe 2 or 3 others. I mentioned China, and I said, look here, when we really mess up terribly and we have no other option, I don't think it's the IMF that you run to. When you look at the scale of the reserves that we have today in the world, when you go to an organization that has got less, their prerequisites, their conditionalities are harsh, and at times they actually derail your economy. So go to a country and negotiate with that country that has got a little bit more reserves. You get a better deal. And be nice to them. If you want to lend money, to borrow money from somebody, be a little bit nice. Don't be arrogant.
Excellent. We appreciate the participation and the engagement from everybody. This show is about the community. It's about the people watching. So let's just show some of the comments here. HH's government allowed diplomats to fly gay flags. What does that mean? I remember that controversy when those flags were allowed to fly. And Chihan Ambewe says the revolution is unstoppable. Those fake accusations, I believe she's referring to the accusations of you, Dr. Musumali, being gay. Those fake accusations won't stop us from building a socialist state in Zambia. Viva Socialist Party. And the comments continue over there. Let's switch gears here. We've actually run out of time, but we can't go away without talking about this. I'm sure you will agree. This issue of corruption, Dr. Musumali, it looks like it's a thorn in the head. It's a thorn in the head. It appears, Dr. Musumali, that we tend to get on the fight against corruption when we switch governments. Then you start persecuting those that were in the previous government. I'm not saying the PF was perfect or they didn't do anything wrong. I'm just saying the way the corruption thing is done. Are the agencies entrusted with the fight against corruption, are they being used as instruments of persecution against the previous government? What's the Socialist Party strategy or position on fighting corruption?
So, Nathan, the fight against corruption has got a huge political component. And when the politics are not played out well, the technocratic legal solutions also fail. The institutions are under political guidance.
Yes.
The institutions on their own cannot do a good job because they need funding, they need direction. Where does that direction come from? So here's the situation. In one of our meetings as a Socialist Party, we had our leaders, I think it was one of the review missions, was it? No. It was one of the leadership ideological meetings. Fred Membe mentioned something. He said, look here, comrades, let's say we had won the elections in August. By December, a number of us, some of you seated here, would have been in prison. So, of course, it was humorous. People laughed a bit, and he said, I'm serious about it. And we mean it. We get into government in 2026 in August. By December, a good number of Socialist Party leaders would have been arrested because of corruption. They would be in jail. And we are going to do it. Corruption is endemic. Corruption is systemic. Corruption destroys everything that we stand for. And the Socialist Party is not immune from corruption. There will be leaders in the Socialist Party that will be corrupt. Power is going to corrupt them. But if you want to fight corruption, start with yourself. Clean your house first. If you don't clean your house, you don't deal ruthlessly with yourselves, forget about it. And this is my piece of advice to the UPND. Start with yourselves. You shouldn't allow a situation where a fertilizer deal goes through and you are connected direct or indirectly to it and you let it loose. Be ruthless. Go for it. You shouldn't allow where a businessman brings a suitcase of money to your Minister of Foreign Affairs or other people and you keep quiet. Go for it. Deal with it ruthlessly. So we are seeing signs of corruption emerging in the UPND, but they are not going for their people in a ruthless way. When you don't do that, and you start hunting the other political players, especially those that were in power, you have lost it. What is it that gives you the legitimacy? You only get your legitimacy by cleaning your house. Then deal immediately with your bureaucrats, the civil service. Because the civil service, if you don't deal with it, will also manage you. Even the so-called good people, they get into government and you are there seated, your PSs, your directors and everyone else. These have lived in a government full of corruption, full of filthy for decades, and they're going to manage you. You are going to be corrupt also, so deal with it. After that, then go to the private sector. So again, deal with yourself, deal with your bureaucrats, go to the private sector. You have more legitimacy that way. You have more credibility that way. But corruption cannot be something you push that others are corrupt and you are not corrupt. There's nothing like that. In a society like ours, corruption is endemic. Corruption is deep-rooted. Even those in opposition political parties are corrupt. And that's how you deal with it. Be systematic, be forthright about it, and don't hide anything. Short of that, we are lying to ourselves. They may end up even being worse than the PF at this pace.
Yeah. Kasulova, go ahead with the next question. It's heartbreaking to say the least, Dr. Musumali. I'm telling you, I'm like
some of us, Nathan, shed tears. We do shed tears every day because if the high-ranking corruption is not dealt with, the teacher out there, you can't stop them from leaking exams. The policeman or policewoman on the road, you can't stop them from doing that. But when you are dealing with yourselves, you are dealing with the big fish ruthlessly, everyone gets scared. By the time you put operational systems in place to deal with corruptions at the middle management, at the lower level, you have won the fight. And countries that have done well with corruption.
As a follow-up question, Dr. Musumali, in your opinion, why are we witnessing the incompetence, performance in handling corruption by the Anti-Corruption Commission? Could it be due to understaffing or maybe a lack of resources?
So again, as I said, the political bit plays a huge role because these are government offices, and normal government offices, when you give the police direction, they follow. Yeah. So that is one. Two, most of our institutions have been underfunded for a long period of time. We have got some very good people in terms of their technical skills, in terms of the little tools that they have, the computer, this and that. Those they have. But the funding at times is quite less. They have been underfunded. And in my opinion, a lot of these previous governments did not want an independent investigative wing. They didn't want an independent anti-corruption commission. So what they have done in the past is to politicize it, is to ensure the efforts of the corruption fight is against the perceived enemies. And these are the people in the opposition political parties. And you are seeing that same trend even today. You are seeing it today. It's following the same thing. Is there no corruption taking place today in Zambia? There is corruption taking place today in Zambia, but that is being ignored. It's being ignored, it's being postponed to the next government to deal with. And we are getting it wrong. So it's not really so much the institutions. The institutions matter, yes, but policy comes first. And that policy is the one that gives huge funding to these institutions, that empowers these anti-corruption institutions. Again, we have individuals that are well-trained. We have a few tools that are quite sufficient, but the political will, the direction has always failed us.
Let's conclude this discussion. We've gone beyond our time because we just felt that we should cover the important subjects and understand the socialists' position on the important issues. Dr. Musumali, let's end with this. This is a critical issue and that it affects everything. The frequency at which the Energy Regulation Board is adjusting the fuel prices is not something the citizens are used to, and it's creating a sense of inconsistency in the pricing of commodities, whether it's services or goods in the economy. Is this an issue your party has addressed with the president? Have you reached out to say, hey, this is causing hard economic hardships?
Yes, we have done that. We have been on radio, on TV, and we have taken a position to this particular issue. Again, for our listeners, technically, there's nothing wrong with adjusting prices on a monthly basis. Technically, there's nothing wrong with it. But there is an environment that you need to do that. Countries that do that are countries where the exchange rate, where inflation is relatively stable, and you allow stability in your economy for at least 5 to 6 years, where exchange rate is not vacillating that much. The range is narrow under which it's moving. And also your inflation rate is relatively low. It's not jumping. Today it's 22%, tomorrow it's at 90%, and so forth. And when there's that stability, macroeconomic stability over a certain period of time, when you make monthly adjustments, those are not as heavy. Those are not felt that much by the consumer. Because in the Zambian sense, you'll be dealing with ngwes. You won't be dealing with kwachas. You'll be dealing with fractions. In the Zambian sense, today where we are, our economy is not yet there. It will take another 8 to 9 years before we have proper macroeconomic stability. With the high debt levels, the volatility in terms of our reserves, and everything else that we are seeing, we are not yet there. So the arguments I've been hearing from the Energy Regulation Board, from some economists, is shallow. Yeah, and they are not reading the situation. The situation is that this economy is not yet ready for it. And when are not yet ready for it, you allow time. You allow at least 6 months, you allow 1 year to make adjustments. And you can create buffers if there are monthly changes, and those buffers are captured, or they capture those changes within a period of 6 months. And if you want to, you can even create those buffers that capture a whole 1 year change. And that way, people can plan better, businesses can plan better. And also, every change you make, every change that you make is affecting other prices. There is a spiral in terms of increases of prices. And the behavior of the economy, the behavior of prices is also that the downward turn is hardly there. It's inflexible. So when, for example, the transporters today are increasing from about 20 kwacha, 25 kwacha, even if you reduce the prices of fuel and tell them to reduce, that rarely happens. And the marketeers are not going to reduce their products just because your inflation has gone down, because you have reduced. There's no reduction. The price of meat will be stagnant or even continue to climb. So those are the things to consider. You are hitting the masses of the people. The poorest of the poor are suffering a lot from this system. And this is a system that's not allowing them to plan on a monthly basis. It's a disaster. And if there's an area where the UPND government has lost confidence, has lost the credibility of the people, it's in this area, because your energy policies affect the masses of our people in a significant way. And forget about everything else. Forget about the mistakes in other areas that they're making. is the price of maize meal, the price of cooking oil, the price of sugar. These daily necessities that the masses of our people need to survive, the price of their transport, these matter more than anything else. And if your government is failing to stabilize those prices, you're in big problems. And we don't rejoice over problems, but you are making our work a bit easier, because then that means the Socialist Party will be getting into power very soon.
I like that. Last two comments from Joseph. The best example of corruption fight is what we saw during KK time. His administration fought corruption regardless who was involved. What Dr. Musumali says is correct. Corruption must be fought from the top bottom. And then the last one is from Patricia. UPND government is doing well. We have been in government for less than a year. We are getting there. Watch this space. Kasuluba, what are we having next week? Let's remind our guests.
So next week, we are talking to the first-time qualifiers to the World Cup.
Okay.
The Shipolo Polo, or rather Copa Queens.
All right. So look forward to that discussions. I think it will be Barbara and the coach. We want to hear from them. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our show today. Our guest was Dr. Cosmas Musumali, the General Secretary and first Vice President of the Socialist Party. Dr. Musumali, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, and thank you very much.
And please, I also want to give a big shout out to Cecilia, whom I deal with in the Socialist Party, very efficient, and I do appreciate her work and whatever she does. Okay, everybody, that was our show for today. Join us next week at the same time. We'll be talking to the Copa Queens as they prepare for the World Cup in 2023.
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.